1 year after the Swarm War, as it came to be called, the galaxy had changed in ways nobody could have predicted. The changes were not just political or military. They were cultural, social, personal. Humans and aliens were learning to live together, and the process was both difficult and rewarding. Captain Megan Foster stood in the training complex on the planet Vreln. Around her, soldiers from 7 different species practiced combat maneuvers. A year ago, this would have been impossible. Most species barely had militaries. They had peacekeeping forces and police, but not real soldiers, not warriors. The swarm had taught them that peace required strength. A young Vrelnari soldier approached Foster nervously. His name was Kelrix, and he was the son of Ambassador Kelthix. Captain Foster, he said, his voice uncertain. I have a question about the tactics you taught us today. Foster smiled. She had learned that Vrelnari found human smiles frightening at first. Humans showed their teeth when happy, which to most species looked like a threat display. But Kelrix had been training with humans for 6 months now. He understood. Ask your question, soldier. When you teach us to advance under fire, you tell us to move quickly and aggressively. But this seems to contradict our instincts. When something dangerous appears, we want to move carefully, slowly. You are asking us to run toward danger. How do humans do this? Foster thought about how to explain. Your instincts evolved on a safe world. When your ancestors faced danger, moving slowly and carefully worked. But humans evolved differently. On Earth, hesitation meant death. Predators were fast. Disasters came suddenly. Our ancestors learned that sometimes the only way to survive was to attack. To move first. To strike hard and never stop moving. We call it aggression, but really it is just survival instinct from a dangerous world. Can we learn to think like humans? Kelrix asked. You do not need to think like humans, Foster replied. You need to think like soldiers. Soldiers from any world learn the same lessons. Trust your training. Trust your team. Do not hesitate when action is required. Your mind might be different from ours, but courage is universal. I have seen you in training, Kelrix. You are brave. You learn quickly. You will make a fine officer. Kelrix's skin flickered with colors that meant pride and gratitude. Thank you, Captain. It means much to hear this from a human warrior. Foster watched him return to his training group. She felt satisfaction. This was what victory really looked like. Not just defeating enemies, but building something better afterward, creating understanding where fear used to exist. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out. Human engineers worked alongside alien scientists, combining human practicality with alien theoretical knowledge. Together, they built things neither could have created alone. Hospitals where human doctors and alien healers learned from each other. Schools where human children and alien children played together. Trade agreements that benefited both sides, but not everything was smooth. There were problems, misunderstandings. Sometimes these were minor. Humans found many alien foods tasteless. Aliens found human food overwhelmingly strong. Humans spoke too loudly for species with sensitive hearing. Aliens moved too slowly for human patience. These small differences caused daily friction, and sometimes the problems were bigger. There were humans who saw aliens as weak and inferior. There were aliens who still feared and resented human violence. Old prejudices died slowly. Trust had to be built one interaction at a time. Admiral Murphy dealt with one such problem when he received a complaint from the Apollox ambassador. Admiral, we must discuss the behavior of human soldiers stationed on Apollox Prime. They have been engaging in what they call sparring, full contact fighting for recreation. This disturbs our people greatly. It looks like violence. It makes us remember the war, Murphy sighed. He had expected this. Ambassador, I understand your concern, but you must understand something about humans. We are physical beings. We need activity, movement, competition. Sparring is how we stay sharp and relieve stress. It is not violence. It is exercise. The soldiers are not hurting each other. They are training and bonding, but it looks violent, the ambassador insisted. To you, perhaps, Murphy agreed. Let me suggest a compromise. The human soldiers will move their training to a designated area, away from civilian populations, and we will invite interested Apollox to come watch and learn. Once your people understand what they are seeing, it will be less frightening. Knowledge reduces fear. The ambassador agreed to try this solution. Murphy made a note to speak with General Collins about setting up cultural sensitivity training for human soldiers. Integration required effort from both sides. Lieutenant Greg Palmer faced a different kind of challenge. He had been assigned to work with a team of Hevrani engineers on upgrading their planetary defense systems. The Hevrani were brilliant scientists but had no military experience. They wanted to discuss every decision in committee meetings that lasted for hours. Palmer, who preferred action to endless talking, found this frustrating. But he learned to adapt. He learned to present his ideas in ways the Hevrani could accept. He learned to be patient. And gradually, the Hevrani engineers learned to make decisions more quickly. They influenced each other. Both sides became better. Commander Kyle Barnes had perhaps the most important job of all. He commanded the new Galactic Defense Force Academy, where officers from every species trained together. This was where the future of galactic defense was being shaped, where humans and aliens learned to work as one. Barnes stood before a class of cadets. Half were human, half were from various alien species. He looked at them all seriously. You are the first generation of a new military tradition. You will face challenges your predecessors never imagined, not just external threats but internal ones. You will serve with people who think differently than you, who look different, who have different values and different instincts. This is hard, but it is necessary. He pointed at a human cadet. You will need to learn patience. Learn to explain things that seem obvious to you. Learn that there are many ways to solve problems. Your way is not the only way. Then he pointed at a Vrelnari cadet. And you will need to learn decisiveness. Learn to act quickly when time is short. Learn that sometimes good enough now is better than perfect later. Learn that your human comrades are not trying to be aggressive. They are trying to be efficient. Both cadets nodded. Barnes continued. The Swarm War taught us that the galaxy needs defenders. Not just human defenders, not just alien defenders, but defenders who can work together, who can combine human aggression with alien wisdom, human strength with alien knowledge. That is what you are training to become, not just soldiers, but bridges between worlds. After class, several cadets approached Barnes with questions. A young human asked, Commander, some of the alien cadets are afraid of us. How do we make them trust us? Barnes thought carefully before answering. Trust is earned through actions, not words. Be reliable, be honest, be patient. When they make mistakes, help them learn instead of criticizing. When they succeed, celebrate with them. Share meals together, share stories. Let them see that underneath the differences, we all want the same things: safety, purpose, belonging. Show them the best parts of humanity, not just the strongest parts, an alien cadet asked. Commander, some humans seem to enjoy violence too much. They laugh during combat simulations. They compete aggressively. Is this normal? Barnes nodded. Yes, it is normal for humans. We evolved as hunters and warriors. Competition is in our blood. But understand this. When humans laugh during combat training, it is not because we enjoy hurting people, it is because we enjoy the challenge, the test of skill. We laugh because we are alive and testing our limits. You do not need to become like us, but try to understand that our aggression comes from joy and competition, not from cruelty. On Earth, changes were happening too. Alien ambassadors and students walked the streets of human cities. Human children attended schools with alien classmates. At first, this had been strange for everyone, but children adapted more quickly than adults. They made friends easily. They learned alien languages. They played together without the prejudices their parents carried. A human girl named Sophie became friends with a young Vrelnari named Talisa. They met at school and bonded over a shared love of mathematics. Sophie's parents were nervous at first. They worried about cultural differences, but Sophie did not care that Talisa looked different. She cared that Talisa was smart and funny and kind. One day, Sophie's mother watched the two girls working on homework together. She saw how they helped each other, how they laughed together, how natural their friendship seemed. She realized that her daughter's generation would build a better galaxy than her own. A galaxy where different species were not separate groups forced to cooperate, but genuine friends who chose to support each other. Ambassador Kelthix visited Earth for the first time since the war. He toured human cities and military bases. He met with government leaders and ordinary citizens. What surprised him most was not human military might. He had seen that during the war. What surprised him was human kindness. Everywhere he went, humans asked about his people. They wanted to know about Vrelnari culture, art, and philosophy. They wanted to learn. They wanted to understand. These were the same warriors who had destroyed the swarm without mercy. Yet they The emergency meeting was different from anything Lisa had seen before. Nobody was laughing now. Nobody was making jokes. The big room was silent except for the soft hum of the translation machines and the scared sounds from different aliens. The big screen in the middle of the room showed a map of space. 3 huge sections were now colored red, Corythian red. The jellyfish alien who led the council did not look pale blue anymore. Now it was a sick gray color, the color of fear. The situation is very bad, it said, and its voice shook. The Corythian Empire is much stronger than we thought. They have weapons that are better than ours. Our defense fleet was destroyed in the first fight. Panic spread through the room. The energy being in the crystal turned angry red. How is this possible, it said. We always had better technology. The Corythians were locked away. Where did they get these weapons? A new voice spoke. They did not get the weapons from anyone. They made them. While we enjoyed our peace, they prepared for war. Everyone turned to look. Admiral Jake Morrison stood there. Military commanders were never allowed in these meetings before. But desperate times needed desperate actions. Morrison was a tall man with broad shoulders. His hair was cut very short and brown. His eyes were steady and strong. He was 45 years old. Young for such an important job, but he earned it through hard work. More importantly, he studied the old human ways of fighting, the tactics from before the coalition. The bug alien clicked its mouthparts angrily. Humans dare to teach us about war. Your species has been peaceful for 1,000 years. What could you know about modern fighting? Morrison did not back down. With respect, Ambassador. My species spent 10,000 years learning how to fight before we joined you. We know quite a lot. That is ancient history. Not important anymore, is it? Morrison pointed at the screen. Your modern fleet was destroyed in less than an hour. 3 civilizations are gone. The Corythians are attacking in 4 directions at once. In 30 days, they will reach your core worlds. Your better technology does not seem to work very well. Silence filled the room. The truth hurt, but nobody could argue with it. The council leader changed colors again. This time it turned deep purple. Lisa would learn later that this was the color of shame. What do you suggest, Admiral Morrison? Morrison stepped forward. The screen changed to show ship movements and battle plans that the coalition had never seen before. The Corythians are using a strategy we call lightning war. They hit hard and fast. They overwhelm defenses before the enemy can fight back. They are counting on your good technology being useless if you cannot use it quickly enough. The energy being pulsed with doubt. And you can stop this strategy. Yes, but you will need to do something difficult. Morrison paused. His face was serious. You will need to trust us. Completely. More whispers filled the room. Trust the humans with military command. The species they laughed at for 1,000 years. This is crazy, the bug alien said. We should bring our remaining forces together. Pull back to the important worlds. Build a proper defense. That is exactly what the Corythians expect. Morrison changed the screen again, showing many simulations. If you pull back, they will trap you and destroy you piece by piece. They have more ships and they are moving fast. Your only chance is to disrupt their advance. Make them react to you instead of you reacting to them. How do we do that? The council leader's voice was almost a whisper. By fighting like humans. Morrison looked around the room at every alien. We have been limited by your rules for 1,000 years. We kept our military small. Our tactics careful. Our weapons limited. You wanted us to be peaceful and we agreed. But peace is not the same as being weak, Morrison continued. Earth has a saying. The best way to keep peace is to prepare for war. We have stayed prepared even when you made fun of us for it. We have ships in storage. Weapons you have never seen. Tactics that your books have forgotten. Give us command of the coalition defense and we will stop the Corythian advance. The bug alien stood up. Its wings spread out aggressively. What if we refuse? What if we handle this ourselves? Then in 30 days, the Corythian Empire will be standing in this very room. Morrison's voice was cold. And they will not ask you to surrender. They will simply take what they want, and you will not be able to stop them. Deep silence followed. Lisa watched the aliens thinking. She could see the struggle on their faces and in their colors. Pride fought against the will to survive. Finally, the council leader spoke. What would you need from us, Admiral? Full control over all coalition military forces, complete freedom to move forces where I think best, and removal of all restrictions on human military operations. The bug alien hissed. You ask for everything. I ask for what is needed to win. Morrison looked at the insect without fear. You can give me what I ask and have a chance to survive, or you can keep your pride and watch your civilization burn. The choice is yours. The vote took 3 hours. In the end, everyone agreed. Admiral Jake Morrison was given command of all coalition forces. He could do whatever he thought was necessary. All restrictions on human military activity were removed. When the meeting ended, Lisa walked up to Morrison. "That was quite impressive, Admiral." Morrison smiled, but it was not a happy smile. It was not a show, Ambassador. Every word was true. He looked at the screen where the red zones of Crethian control kept growing. "We have 30 days to save the galaxy. I just hope 30 days is enough." Within hours, orders went out across all human space. Ships that had been stored away for centuries were brought back to life. Weapons that the Coalition thought were too old were turned back on. Training centers that ran on peacetime schedules switched to wartime intensity. And in the deepest parts of Earth's military archives, secret documents were opened. Tactical books that had not been read in 1,000 years, battle strategies developed during humanity's bloodiest wars, the collected wisdom of 10,000 years of fighting. The galaxy had laughed at Earth for 1,000 years. Now they would remember why they used to fear humans. Now they would understand what it meant when humans went to war. The command center of the human carrier Defiance looked very different from the elegant alien warships. While alien vessels had smooth flowing designs and soft lights, the Defiance was all hard edges and bright lights. The walls were covered with screens showing tactical data, fleet positions, and threat information. The air smelled like recycled oxygen and electronics. Admiral Morrison stood in the center of it all. His command staff surrounded him. They were a mix of old veterans who remembered the past and young officers eager to prove themselves. All of them looked determined and excited. "Give me a status report," Morrison said. Captain Helen Price, his second-in-command, pulled up a holographic display. "Third Fleet is fully ready. 42 capital ships, 160 destroyers, 300 fighters, all human crews. The coalition ships we were given are joining our formation now. How are the alien crews adapting to our way of fighting?" Price smiled a little. "They are confused, sir. They keep asking why we are not moving in standard battle formations. I have explained 3 times that we do not use standard formations, but they have trouble understanding. They will understand soon enough." Morrison studied the tactical display. "Where are the Crethians now?" Lieutenant Roger Blake, the intelligence officer, highlighted a part of space. "They just entered the Helix Nebula, sir, moving in force toward the Valorian home system. They will arrive in 18 hours at current speed." Morrison nodded slowly. "The Valorians are demanding we send the entire fleet to defend their world." "Yes, sir. They are threatening to ask the Council to remove you from command if you do not do what they say." "Of course they are." Morrison turned to his staff. "Tell me what would happen if we met the Crethian fleet in a direct fight to defend the Valorian homeworld." Price answered right away. "We would lose, sir. The Crethians have more ships and more firepower. They would trap us against the planet and destroy us." "Correct. So we are not going to do that." Morrison pointed at the display. "The Crethian advance has been fast and strong, yes, but moving fast creates weaknesses. They have stretched their supply lines across half the sector. Those lines are their weakness." Blake leaned forward, beginning to understand. "You want to attack their supplies, not just attack. Destroy." Morrison changed the display, showing supply depots and convoy routes. "The Crethians are so confident that they left their rear areas barely protected. They expect us to do the predictable thing, to meet them directly. Instead, we are going to do what humans do best. We are going to be unpredictable." He explained the plan quickly. The fleet would split into 3 groups. Each would hit a different part of the Crethian supply network at the same time. They would use fast strike tactics, hitting hard and pulling back before the enemy could respond. The goal was not to hold territory but to cause chaos. "What about the Valorian homeworld?" Price asked. "It will fall." Morrison's voice was flat. "We cannot save it, not directly. But when the Crethians realize their supply lines are being attacked, they will have to send forces to protect them. That will slow their advance and give us control. The Valorians will never forgive us. I would rather have living Valorians who hate us than dead ones who trusted us to do the impossible. We are not here to make friends, Captain. We are here to win." The orders went out. The Third Fleet and the coalition ships under Morrison's command began moving into position. The human ships activated stealth systems that the coalition had never seen before. Old technology pulled from archives and improved with modern parts made them nearly invisible to standard sensors. The first strike came exactly 36 hours later. Task Force Alpha, led by Captain Sarah Torres on the destroyer Independence, hit a Crithian supply depot at the edge of the nebula. The attack was fast and brutal. Human missiles, old designs that the Crithians had never seen, overwhelmed their defenses. The depot was destroyed in minutes. Before the Crithians could respond, the task force disappeared into the nebula's interference, using the terrain and stealth to avoid pursuit. 6 hours later, Task Force Bravo struck a convoy of supply ships. Commander Daniel Wright, a veteran who had studied every major naval battle in human history, used tactics from an ancient Earth battle called Midway. His fighters ambushed the convoy from multiple directions, using surprise to devastating effect. And 12 hours after that, Morrison himself led Task Force Charlie in an attack on a Crithian forward staging area. The human flagship Defiance came out of faster-than-light travel directly in the middle of the enemy formation, a move so reckless that the Crithians had no defensive plans for it. The humans fired everything they had at point-blank range, then jumped away before the Crithians could organize a counterattack. The staging area was left in ruins. On the bridge of the Defiance, Price studied the damage reports. "We lost 3 destroyers and took heavy damage to the Defiance, but the mission was successful. The Crithian staging area is destroyed." Morrison nodded. His face was serious. "And now we wait." They did not have to wait long. Within hours, intelligence reports showed the Crithian main fleet slowing down. Units were being sent to protect supply lines. The invasion, which had seemed unstoppable, was starting to slow. The Valorian homeworld fell as Morrison had predicted. But instead of pushing forward to the next target, the Crithians stopped to secure their position. They were adapting to the new threat, becoming more careful. "Perfect," Morrison said, watching the tactical display. "Now they are reacting to us. Now they are afraid." Price looked at him. "This was always the plan. Make them afraid. Fear is a weapon, Captain." The Coalition forgot that. They thought good technology and unity would be enough. But the Crithians are warriors. They respect only strength and fear only uncertainty. We are giving them both. Across Coalition space, news of the human strike spread quickly. The other species watched with horror and fascination as humanity showed tactics they had never imagined. The humans did not follow standard rules. They did not fight honorably. They struck from the shadows, hit the enemy where it hurt most, and disappeared before anyone could hit back. It was not the way civilized species fought wars. It was the way humans fought wars. And slowly, very slowly, the tide began to turn. The war room of the Coalition Council had been changed completely. The beautiful furniture and art displays were gone. In their place were tactical screens, communication systems, and maps that updated constantly. The change showed that the Coalition was finally taking the Crithian threat seriously. Lisa Carter stood near the back of the room, watching Admiral Morrison brief the gathered aliens. The Admiral looked exhausted. Dark circles shadowed his eyes and his uniform was wrinkled from weeks without proper rest. But his voice stayed steady, and his tactical mind stayed sharp. "The Crithian advance has stopped," Morrison said, pointing at the holographic display. "Our strikes against their supply lines forced them to bring their forces together and protect their rear areas. We bought ourselves time, but time alone will not win this war." The council leader, still wearing its shame-purple color, spoke up. "What do you suggest, Admiral? We need to attack." Morrison changed the display, showing a region of space deep in Crithian-held territory. "Intelligence suggests the Crithians have built a command center here, in the Omega Sector. If we can destroy that center, we can disrupt their coordination and throw their entire operation into chaos." The bug alien, who had been much quieter since the crisis began, clicked its mouthparts nervously. "That sector has heavy defenses. The losses would be terrible, only if we attack normally." Morrison smiled, and it was not a pleasant smile. "But we are not going to do that. We are going to use a tactic humans developed during our own wars. We are going to make them think we are attacking one place while our real target is somewhere else." He explained the plan in detail. The main human fleet would make a very visible push toward a Crithian stronghold in the Sigma sector. The Crithians would see this as a direct challenge, an attempt to take back lost territory. They would concentrate their forces to meet the threat. Meanwhile, a smaller strike force would use the distraction to go deep into Crithian space and hit the command center in Omega Sector. The strike force would be made up entirely of human ships and crews. They would travel in stealth, moving through routes that standard coalition navigation thought were impossible. "This is crazy," the energy being pulsed. "You are asking us to sacrifice ships and lives as a distraction. I am asking you to trust me." Morrison met the energy being's gaze steadily. "Every life lost in the diversion will save 100 more if we succeed. This is how you win wars against a stronger enemy. You make them look the wrong way." The debate lasted for hours, but in the end, the council approved the plan. They had little choice. Every day the Crithians held their positions was another day they could make themselves stronger. 3 days later, the operation began. The main coalition fleet, led by Captain Helen Price on the Defiance, jumped into the Sigma sector with no attempt at hiding. They broadcast their presence on every frequency, challenging the Crithians to battle. The Crithians responded exactly as Morrison predicted. Their forces gathered at Sigma sector, eager to destroy the human fleet that had caused them so much trouble. The battle was fierce and bloody. Price used every trick in the human tactical manual, making the Crithians fight for every meter of space. Coalition ships fought alongside human vessels, their crews finally beginning to understand the value of unpredictable tactics. While the Crithians focused on Sigma sector, Admiral Morrison led a strike force of 12 ships toward Omega sector. They traveled through a region of space known as the Badlands, an area filled with gravity problems and space distortions that made navigation nearly impossible for the Coalition. But human pilots had trained for this. They studied ancient Earth techniques for flying through dangerous conditions. They trusted their instruments and their instincts equally. Lieutenant Nicole Grant, one of Morrison's best pilots, guided the lead ship through a field of gravity problems that would have torn a Coalition vessel apart. "We are approaching the Omega sector, Admiral. No sign we have been detected." "Excellent work, Lieutenant." Morrison studied the tactical display. "All ships prepare for combat acceleration. We are going to have one chance at this. Make it count." They came out of the Badlands directly above the Crithian command center. The installation was massive, a space station that matched anything the Coalition had ever built. It was covered with weapons and defensive systems, but the Crithians never imagined anyone would be foolish enough to attack it with just 12 ships. All ships, weapons free. "Fire everything." Morrison's voice was calm, almost peaceful. This was what he had trained for his entire life. The human ships unleashed a devastating attack. Missiles, railgun rounds, directed energy weapons, every weapon system humanity had developed over 10,000 years of warfare. The attack was overwhelming, precise, and absolutely ruthless. The Crithian command center tried to respond, but the attack had been too sudden, too coordinated. Critical systems failed. Defensive screens collapsed. And then, as the humans had planned, the station's own power core became unstable. "All ships, emergency jump." "Now," Morrison ordered. The human vessels jumped away just as the command center exploded. The explosion was visible across 3 sectors of space. In the Sigma sector, the Crithian forces suddenly lost coordination. Ships stopped responding to tactical commands. Formations broke apart. Captain Price, seeing the opportunity, ordered a full assault. The battle turned in minutes. The Crithians, confused and leaderless, began to retreat. For the first time since the invasion began, Coalition forces were advancing. When Morrison's strike force returned to Coalition space, they were greeted as heroes. The Council held an emergency session to thank them personally. Even the bug alien who had been so dismissive of humanity offered a formal bow of respect. Lisa found Morrison in the observation deck of the Defiance, staring out at the stars. "Quite a victory, Admiral. One victory, Ambassador. The war is not over. The Crithians will adapt. They will rebuild their command structure and come at us again." He turned to face her. "But now the galaxy knows what humans can do. Now they remember why we were feared. Is that what you wanted? For them to fear us again?" Morrison shook his head. "I wanted them to respect us. There is a difference. Fear is a tool, but respect is what builds lasting friendships." He looked back at the stars. "For 1,000 years we tried to earn their respect through peace. In the end, we had to remind them that peace is only possible when you have the strength to defend it." Lisa nodded slowly. The galaxy would never see humanity the same way again. The time of mockery was over. Now came the final test. The Crythian Empire had never known defeat. For 3,000 years they conquered every species they met. Their military way was simple and brutal. Use overwhelming force without mercy or hesitation. It worked against every enemy they faced, until they met humanity. The loss of their command center did not break the Crythians, instead it made them angry. They regrouped, brought in more forces, and prepared for a final decisive battle. They would crush the coalition once and for all, and they would make sure to destroy every human ship in space. The Crythian War Master, a being whose name meant Destroyer of Worlds, issued a challenge. The final battle would happen above the coalition capital world. Winner takes all. Admiral Morrison accepted without hesitation. The preparations took 2 weeks. Every available ship from human space and coalition territory was brought together. Factories that had been quiet for centuries came back to life, making ammunition and supplies. Veterans who had retired long ago returned to active duty. Young recruits trained day and night, learning tactics developed in humanity's bloodiest wars. Lisa Carter watched from the observation deck as the fleet gathered. Nearly 1,000 ships, the largest force the coalition had ever put together. At its heart were the human vessels, older and more worn than their alien counterparts, but crewed by people who understood what was at stake. Captain Helen Price joined her at the window. Impressive, is it not? All these species finally working together. It only took the threat of extinction to unite them. Lisa's voice was dry. Perhaps that is humanity's gift to the galaxy. We remind everyone what is important. Price smiled. The Admiral says you have been important in keeping coalition support. The delegates actually listen to you now. They listen because they are afraid. Once the crisis is over, they will go back to dismissing us. Perhaps. Or perhaps this will change things permanently. Price turned to face her. We have proven ourselves, Ambassador. They cannot deny that. Before Lisa could respond, the alert alarm sounded. The Crythian fleet had arrived. On the bridge of the Defiance, Admiral Morrison watched as enemy ships appeared on the tactical display. The Crythian force was massive, easily twice as many as the coalition fleet. They brought everything they had for this final fight. Status report, Morrison ordered. Lieutenant Roger Blake worked his console rapidly. Enemy fleet consists of about 2,000 vessels, including 50 dreadnoughts. They are arranging in standard Crythian assault formation. Looks like they are planning a direct frontal attack. Of course they are. Morrison almost smiled. They are warriors. They believe strength alone will win the day. Captain Price, implement battle plan Thermopylae. Price's eyes widened slightly. Sir, that plan calls for holding a narrow corridor of space while the enemy exhausts themselves attacking our defensive position. It is designed for a small force to hold against many. Exactly. We have the advantage of defending the capital. We will use the planet's gravity and orbital structures to create a kill zone. Let them come to us. Morrison looked around the bridge. All ships, take defensive positions. Make them pay for every meter they advance. The coalition fleet arranged, itself in a formation that looked chaotic to Crythian eyes but was actually carefully planned. Human ships formed the core, their weapons optimized for close-range combat. Coalition vessels surrounded them, providing long-range fire support. The Crythian fleet advanced in a massive wave, confident in their numerical advantage. They expected the coalition to try to match their formation, to fight the kind of traditional fleet battle that favored overwhelming force. Instead, the coalition held its position. The first wave of Crythian ships entered the kill zone and were met with a wall of fire. Human railguns, firing solid projectiles at incredible speeds, punched through shields and armor. Coalition energy weapons carved through hulls. Mines that had been placed throughout the defensive area exploded, creating a field of debris that slowed the Crythian advance. But the Crythians did not stop. They pressed forward, accepting terrible losses in their determination to break through. We are taking heavy casualties, Price reported. Shields are holding, but we cannot keep this up forever. We do not have to keep it up forever. Morrison watched the tactical display carefully. Just long enough. All ships prepare for Phase 2. The Crythians, focused entirely on breaking through the defensive line, did not notice the subtle repositioning of coalition forces. They did not see the trap closing around them. Morrison had learned from studying Earth's ancient battles. The Battle of Cannae, where Hannibal lured the Roman army into a killing field and surrounded them. The Battle of Agincourt, where English archers decimated French cavalry in a narrow pass. The principles were the same. Force the enemy to fight on your terms, in terrain that favors your strengths. Now, Morrison ordered. Coalition forces that had been holding back suddenly surged forward from the sides. The Crethean fleet stretched out and committed to their frontal assault, found themselves surrounded. Human destroyers, small and quick, darted through the enemy formation like sharks, targeting command ships and communication systems. The Crethean formation began to collapse. Individual ships fought with desperate courage, but without coordination, their numerical advantage became a problem. They were packed too closely together, limiting their own ability to move. Captain Sarah Torres, commanding a wing of human fighters, reported in. Enemy fleet coordination is breaking down. They are trying to retreat, but they have no clear escape route. Do not let them regroup. Morrison's voice was hard. Press the attack. Show them no mercy, just as they showed none to the worlds they conquered. The battle raged for 18 hours. By the end, the Crethean fleet was shattered. More than 3/4 of their ships were destroyed or disabled. The rest fled into the depths of space, their warrior pride broken. The coalition had lost nearly 400 ships, but they had won. The Crethean invasion was over. In the aftermath, the Coalition Council met to discuss terms with the Crethean Empire. The War Master, his pride shattered, but his honor intact, appeared via hologram to negotiate surrender. Admiral Morrison stood before the council as the Crethean spoke. "We underestimated you," the War Master said, his voice heavy with bitter respect. "We believed the humans were weak, that you had grown soft in your long peace. We were wrong." Morrison nodded. "You made the same mistake the Coalition made. You thought that because we chose peace we were incapable of war, but peace is not weakness. It is a choice made by those strong enough to maintain it." The War Master was silent for a long moment. "Your species has earned the respect of the Crethean Empire. We will honor the terms of surrender. But know this, we will remember this day. We will remember the humans who defeated us." "Good," Morrison said quietly. "Remember it well. Remember that humanity does not seek war, but we will not run from it when necessary. Remember that we are strongest when defending what we love, and remember that 1,000 years of mockery does not erase 10,000 years of history." The transmission ended. The council chamber was silent. Then, slowly, the council leader changed color. Not to shame purple or fear gray, to a deep, rich gold. "The color of honor. Admiral Morrison, on behalf of the Galactic Coalition, I offer our deepest gratitude and our sincerest apologies." The council leader spoke in a voice full of emotion. "We mocked you when we should have learned from you. We dismissed your warnings when we should have listened. You saved us not because we deserved it, but because you are better than we are." Morrison bowed formally. "We did what needed to be done. Nothing more, nothing less." The bug alien stood, its wings spreading in a gesture of deep respect. "From this day forward, humanity will have a seat of honor on this council. Your voice will be heard, your advice will be valued, and your strength will be recognized." Other delegates added their own promises. The Valorians, despite losing their homeworld, admitted that Morrison's strategy had saved countless other lives. The coalition would rebuild, stronger and more united than before. Later, in the quiet of her room, Lisa Carter wrote a message to Earth. "To the people of Earth," she wrote, "For 1,000 years we endured mockery. For 1,000 years, we proved ourselves through peaceful contribution. But in our darkest hour, when the galaxy needed us most, we showed them what humanity truly is. We are not conquerors. We are not warmongers, but we are survivors. We are protectors, and we will stand against any darkness that threatens those we have sworn to defend. The galaxy mocked us. Now they remember. Not because we wanted their fear, but because we earned their respect." Admiral Morrison stood on the observation deck of the Defiance, watching as the fleet dispersed. Ships returned to their homeworlds carrying stories of the battle that would be told for generations. Captain Price joined him. What happens now, Admiral? Now, Morrison smiled slightly. Now we go back to peace. We rebuild, we heal, and we hope that we never have to fight like this again. But we will be ready if we do. Always, Morrison agreed. Because that is what it means to be human. We hope for peace, but we prepare for war. We seek diplomacy, but we keep our strength. We offer friendship, but we never forget that freedom must be defended. He looked out at the stars, at the vast space that humanity once thought was unreachable. For 1,000 years, the galaxy had mocked Earth. They dismissed human history as lies, human ability as primitive, human warnings as paranoid. Now they knew better. Now they remembered why. Long ago, before the Coalition, when humanity first reached for the stars, other species looked at them with both awe and terror. They remembered the old stories, the ancient warnings about the species from planet Earth. Do not provoke the humans. Do not underestimate them. Do not mock them. Because when humanity goes to war, they do not fight for conquest or glory. They fight for survival, for their loved ones, for the principles they believe in. And there is no force in the universe more terrifying than a human fighting for something they believe in. The galaxy had forgotten that lesson. For 1,000 years they grew comfortable, convinced themselves that the old stories were just myths. But myths, Morrison thought, often have a basis in truth, and now, thanks to the Krithian invasion and humanity's response, the galaxy would not forget again. Not for another 1,000 years, perhaps not ever. In the weeks that followed, life slowly returned to normal. The Coalition began the long process of rebuilding. Aid ships traveled to damaged worlds. Engineers worked to repair destroyed stations. Families mourned their lost and celebrated their survivors. But things were different now. When human ships entered Coalition space, they were greeted with respect. When human ambassadors spoke at council meetings, delegates listened carefully. When human military advisors offered suggestions, commanders took notes. The change was not universal. Some species still harbored resentment. Some still believed humans were too violent, too unpredictable. But they kept their opinions quiet now. They had seen what happened when humanity was pushed too far. Lisa found herself in unexpected demand. Delegates who once ignored her now sought her advice. They asked about human history, human psychology, human tactics. They wanted to understand what made humans so effective in war. She did her best to explain. Humans, she told them, were not naturally better warriors than other species. What made them effective was their adaptability, their creativity, their refusal to give up even in hopeless situations. Humans had spent thousands of years fighting each other, learning hard lessons in blood and fire. That experience, terrible as it was, had taught them things other species never needed to learn, until now. The Coalition military underwent massive reforms. Human tactical doctrines were studied and integrated. Training programs were updated to include unpredictable scenarios. Ships were redesigned to favor maneuverability over pure firepower. The entire Coalition was learning from humanity's example. Admiral Morrison was offered a permanent position as Supreme Commander of Coalition forces. He declined. His place, he said, was with Earth's fleet. But he agreed to serve as a military advisor and to help train the next generation of Coalition officers. The Krithian Empire, true to their word, honored the surrender terms. They withdrew to their original territory and began the process of rebuilding their own society. Surprisingly, they requested human advisors to help with the transition. Warriors, they said, respected other warriors. They wanted to learn from the species that defeated them. General Henry Graham, watching events unfold from Earth, spoke with Lisa via secure channel. Well, Ambassador, it seems you got what you wanted, respect. Lisa shook her head. I never wanted respect earned through bloodshed, General. I wanted them to see our value through peace. The old man smiled sadly. Sometimes, Ambassador, the universe does not give us what we want. It gives us what we need. The Coalition needed to remember that peace has a price, that freedom must be defended. That complacency kills. We paid that price for them. Now they understand. Do you think this will last? Will they remember or will they forget again in another 1,000 years? That depends on us. If we go back to being the quiet, peaceful species that never makes waves, they will forget. But if we maintain our strength, if we continue to contribute and lead, if we show them that humanity earned its place through both peace and war, then perhaps this time the lesson will stick. 6 months after the final battle, The coalition held a memorial service for all those lost in the war. Representatives from every species gathered at a newly constructed monument in neutral space. The monument was simple but powerful. A circle of stone pillars, each representing a fallen civilization or ship, surrounding a central flame that would burn forever. Admiral Morrison was asked to speak. He stood before the assembled crowd, looking tired but determined. "We gather here to remember," he began. "To remember those who fell. To remember the cost of peace. To remember that freedom is never free." His voice carried across the silent crowd. "For 1,000 years, this galaxy enjoyed peace. That peace made us soft, made us forget, made us believe that we were safe simply because we wished to be. The Crithian invasion taught us otherwise. It reminded us that the universe is not kind, that threats exist whether we acknowledge them or not, that peace is not a natural state but a choice we must defend every day." He paused, looking at the flame. "Humanity has known war. We have paid terrible prices for our conflicts. We came to the coalition hoping to leave that behind, and we did for 1,000 years. But we never forgot the lessons we learned. We never forgot that peace requires strength. Now the coalition has learned that lesson too, at a terrible cost. Let us honor those who paid that cost by never forgetting again. Let us build a galaxy where peace is maintained not through hope alone, but through vigilance and strength. Let us ensure that their sacrifice means something." The crowd was silent for a long moment. Then slowly they began to applaud. Not the polite applause of ceremony, but genuine appreciation and agreement. Lisa stood with the other ambassadors, tears in her eyes. For 1,000 years she had worked to make humanity respected. Now finally it had happened. Not the way she wanted, but perhaps the only way it could. As the ceremony ended and the crowd dispersed, she found herself standing alone by the memorial flame. Captain Price approached quietly. "Beautiful service," the captain said. "Yes." Lisa wiped her eyes. "I just hope we truly learned the lesson. That this was not all for nothing." Price smiled. "Look around, Ambassador. Really look. Do you see how they watch us now? Not with mockery, not with dismissal, with respect. With a bit of caution, yes, but also with genuine admiration. Humanity has its place now. We earned it at what cost? At the cost it always requires." Price looked at the flame. "Freedom is not free. Peace is not free. Respect is not free. We pay for these things with sacrifice, with vigilance, with the willingness to stand up when others will not. That is what it means to be human. That is what we showed them." Years later, historians would look back on this period as the turning point, the moment when humanity went from being the newcomers, the primitives, the species everyone looked down upon, to being one of the respected powers of the galaxy. Children in schools across coalition space learned about the war. They studied human tactics. They read about Admiral Morrison's strategies. They learned the names of the human heroes who saved the galaxy. But more importantly, they learned the lesson that peace requires strength, that vigilance is the price of freedom, that those who forget history are doomed to repeat it, and